Hey, I'm Ryan Kilgore. Welcome to In the Bible. I'm so glad that you've joined me today. I hope that you are doing well. In fact, how are you doing? Why not just send me an email? Let me know what's going on in your life. Just post down in the comments. Tell me what's been going on. I would be honored to pray for you. I am doing fantastic. The sun is out, finally. It's warm. As soon as I get done here, I'm gonna go ride my bike. Check this out. Oh yeah. Super excited. I'm also very excited because I've been reading this story in the book of Genesis about Isaac and his family. And let me tell you, it is ridiculous. Ridiculous. So what we're going to do today is go through the 4 elements that I've shared before about narrative analysis. We're going to do number one, Number 1, settings and props. Number 2, characters. Number 3, actions. And number 4, plot. We're going to do that all at once, and that's going to help us to catch some of the detail that's here in this story. So let's get stuck in. So this story is in Genesis chapter 27. And in the book of Genesis, God has made a covenant or a special relationship with Abraham. He called him to leave the place where he lived, go to a new place. He said that he would make his descendants vast and numerous, and that he would bless them, and through them they would bless the earth. And so then Abraham has one son through whom this promise is going to be fulfilled, and that's Isaac. So when we come to this story now, Isaac himself has 2 sons, Esau, the older, and Jacob, the younger. So notice what it says here in this very first few verses. It says, "When Isaac was old and his eyes were dim so that he could not see, he called Esau, his older son, and said to him, 'My son.' And he answered, 'Here I am.' He said, 'Behold, I am old. I do not know the day of my death. Now then, take your weapons, your quiver, and your bow, and go out to the field and hunt game for me, and prepare for me delicious food such as I love, and bring it to me so that I may eat, that my soul may bless you before I die.'" So Isaac is wanting his son Esau to prepare this feast, which was a special occasion that would typically be part of this kind of a celebration where he gives this blessing to his son, and he knows that God will fulfill this promise through his son, so he intends to pass that on to his oldest son, Esau. And notice a few things here in this passage. It tells us about Isaac. It characterizes Isaac as old. His eyes are dim so that he can't see. So Isaac is running to the end of his life, and in particular, that detail that he's not able to see is very important. And this serves as the problem for the plot of this story. It sets up the story. It tells us what needs to be resolved. In this case, Esau needs to go and get the food so that he can bring it back, share it with his father, and receive the blessing that his father wants to give him. So this next section is where everything gets turned around because Rebekah, Isaac's wife, has overheard Isaac telling Esau what he intends to do, that he's going to give him this blessing. And Rebekah isn't happy with that. She has a different plan in mind. And so she calls her younger son, Jacob, these are twin boys, she calls Jacob in and she tells him this plan that she has. Notice what she says to him. She says, "Go to the flock and bring me 2 good young goats, so that I may prepare from them delicious food for your father, such as he loves. And you shall bring it to your father to eat, so that he may bless you before he dies." But Jacob said to Rebekah his mother, "Behold, my brother Esau is a hairy man, and I am a smooth man. Perhaps my father will feel me, and I shall seem to be mocking him, and bring a curse upon myself, and not a blessing." His mother said to him, "Let your curse be on me, my son. Only obey my voice, and go, bring them to me." So Jacob knows that this is a risky plan. They're intending to deceive Isaac to get this blessing from him. And the difficulty that they face, of course, is that Esau is very hairy. He's got hair on his arms, whereas his brother Jacob is not hairy. And his father isn't able to see, but he is able to feel, and he's going to know the difference. And so Jacob is afraid that this is going to backfire big time on them. And the way that the author of Genesis tells this story, he emphasizes the physical differences between these two brothers in order to help develop the story, develop the plot of the story. So Jacob has some reservations about this plan, but he seems to go and do it anyway. And notice what it says then. It says, "Then Rebekah took the best garments of Esau, her older son, which were with her in the house, and put them on Jacob, her younger son. And the skins of the young goats she put on his hands and on the smooth part of his neck. And she put the delicious food and the bread which she had prepared into the hand of her son Jacob." Now, so far in this story, the author of Genesis has made a lot of references to the game, to the food that Isaac wanted prepared for him. This is really a critical element in this story because that's the key to receiving the blessing. The first one to go to Isaac with the food that he wants is going to get the blessing that he's going to pass on to his descendant. So in spite of Jacob's reservation about this plan that his mother has, he's going through with it so far. And he goes in to his father. Notice what it says then in verse 19. Jacob said to his father, "I am Esau, your firstborn." So he's lying right here already. "I've done as you told me. Now sit up and eat of my game, that your soul may bless me." But Isaac said to his son, "How is it that you have found it so quickly, my son?" He answered, "Because the Lord your God granted me success." So here we have two lies already. And clearly, Isaac seems to have some clue that this isn't his son Esau. Something is not quite right. Let's continue on. Then Isaac said to Jacob, "Please come near that I may feel you, my son, to know whether you are really my son Esau or not." So clearly Isaac is attuned to the deception that's going on. He doesn't know, but he has doubts about who this really is. So Jacob went near to Isaac his father, who felt him, and said, "The voice is Jacob's voice, but the hands are the hands of Esau." And he did not recognize him because his hands were hairy like his brother Esau's hands. So he blessed him. He said, "Are you really my son Esau?" He answered, "I am." Then he said, "Bring it near to me, that I may eat of my son's game and bless you." So he brought it near to him, and he ate. And he brought him wine, and he drank. So multiple times here, the author has communicated to us in telling this story that Isaac had some doubts about who really was bringing him this food. But 3 times here, Jacob has lied to his father explicitly. He's put on the skins from the goats so that he feels hairy like his brother. He's wearing his brother's clothes so that he smells like his brother as well. And so Jacob is characterized in this story by his actions, by those lies, by bringing the food in, and that's what pulls off this deception. And then he gives him this blessing. It's very interesting. In verse 28, Isaac says, "May God give you the dew of heaven and of the fatness of the earth and plenty of grain and wine." In other words, bless you materially. And then in verse 29, "Let peoples serve you and nations bow down to you. Be Lord over your brothers, and may your mother's sons bow down to you. Cursed be everyone who curses you, and blessed be everyone who blesses you." Now, Isaac doesn't seem to realize it at this point because of the deception that's taken place. But this blessing that he gives to Jacob is actually something that already had been prophesied. Maybe he didn't understand the prophecy, it's not clear, but as readers here, if we look back in the story of Genesis and we go to chapter 25, we see that this blessing was prophesied about Jacob. And now here Isaac is fulfilling that blessing by giving it to Jacob instead of to Esau, whom he had intended to give it to. And you can see this in chapter 25. If we go back to chapter 25, Rebekah's having some problems with her pregnancy when she's carrying Esau and Jacob. And so she goes to inquire from the Lord. And this is what it says there in verse 23. "And the Lord said to her, 2 nations are in your womb, and 2 peoples from within you shall be divided. The one shall be stronger than the other. The older shall serve the younger." So this is a reversal from the typical expectations. Usually it's the firstborn, the literal firstborn, who has the privileges of leadership, who inherits a birthright, an additional portion of the inheritance, is expected to carry on the family line and be sort of the spiritual leader. And so that should have been Esau, according to tradition. But we see here that God has chosen Jacob to be the one to carry on that line and to receive that blessing. So if we're following along with the plot of the story, we've seen the problem at the beginning when Isaac sends his son out to hunt game to prepare this meal for him, and then he intends to give him this blessing. And then in the development of that problem, there's a twist in the story as Rebekah has overheard this invitation from Isaac, and she decides to send Jacob, the younger son, in to receive the blessing instead by using deception. And so Jacob then goes in, and this is where we come to the crisis or the climax of the story, where Jacob does in fact pull off the deception, and so he gives Jacob this blessing without knowing who it is. So that's kind of the crisis here, and then we come to the complication. So let's read this next part of the story. I mean, this is something you can hardly make up. It's so dramatic. Let's read in verse 30. As soon as Isaac had finished blessing Jacob, when Jacob had scarcely gone out from the presence of Isaac his father, Esau his brother came in from his hunting. He also prepared delicious food and brought it to his father. And he said to his father, "Let my father arise and eat of his son's game, that you may bless me." His father Isaac said to him, "Who are you?" He answered, "I am your son, your firstborn, Esau." Then Isaac trembled very violently and said, "Who was it then that hunted game and brought it to me, and I ate it all before you came and have blessed him? Yes, and he shall be blessed." As soon as Esau heard the words of his father, he cried out with an exceedingly great and bitter cry and said to his father, "Bless me, even me also, O my father." But he said, "Your brother came deceitfully, and he has taken away your blessing." Esau said, "Is he not rightly named Jacob? For he has cheated me these 2 times. He took away my birthright, and behold, now he has taken away my blessing." Then he said, "Have you not reserved a blessing for me?" Isaac answered and said to Esau, "Behold, I have made him lord over you, and all his brothers I have given to him for servants, and with grain and wine I have sustained him. What then can I do for you, my son?" Esau said to his father, "Have you but one blessing, my father? Bless me, even me also, O my father." And Esau lifted up his voice and wept. Now, there may be some question in your mind about the reality of this blessing. If Jacob received this blessing by deceit, doesn't that make it void? Can't Isaac just take it back and give it instead to Esau if that's what he wants to do? It's not quite clear what Isaac believes in this story about the power of the blessing that he conferred upon his son, as though it has in and of itself supernatural power, that it can't be taken back, and that just by declaring this, that it will become so. I think the more likely answer is that Isaac understood the prophecy about his younger son, Jacob, but he wanted to give it to his older son, Esau, because there's this interesting tidbit back in chapter 25. In verse 27, it says, "When the boys grew up, Esau was a skillful hunter, a man of the field, while Jacob was a quiet man, dwelling in tents. Isaac loved Esau because he ate of his game, but Rebekah loved Jacob." So it seems most likely to me that Isaac had a special place in his heart for Esau. He loved him, it says there in chapter 25. And he knew that prophecy about the older son serving the younger. So he must have known that the blessing would go through Isaac, but he seemed to be resisting it by intending to give the blessing to Esau. And he finds out here that he's unknowingly given it to the younger son, to Jacob. And so it must be that when he discovered that, he realized that this was God's will and he was powerless before that. And that seems to be one of the things that we learn from this story. God's will ultimately will be carried out. So here's the tragedy of this story and so many others. In the end, God is going to accomplish what he decides to do. But God wants to work with human beings who are prone to errors, prone to sin. In this case, Jacob receives the blessing that God was going to give him, but he receives it by deception. So today, we can learn from the mistakes that Jacob made, that all these other people in the Bible have made, trying to go ahead of God, trying to fulfill God's will without him. So I want to remind you today, through this story, to trust God, to fulfill the promises that He has made to you. Count on Him, rely on Him, go to Him in prayer and ask Him to fulfill the promises that He's made. Ask Him to save you, to provide for you, to take care of you. Whatever promises you find in the Scriptures, He will fulfill them. You don't need to try to fulfill God's promises yourself. Okay, that does it for this study today. I sure hope you've been blessed. If you have, now would be a great time to just hit that like button down below. While you're down there, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and click that bell so that you get a notification every time I upload a new video. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm going to go get on my bike. Catch you guys next time.